not on. There it is.
Yeah.
Everyone hear me now? All right. So I am NJPP's board chair. I want to thank you all for coming, and a special thanks today to our speakers and NJPP staff that put this event and last night's event together, including Jennifer. Come on, stand up if you're here. Erica. Yeah. Lily. Where's Lily? All right. Here. And of course, Nicole, the leader, and David. Thank you very much. I know these events are not easy. I put them together, and it takes a lot of planning.
Okay.
I also want to thank the hotel staff and my fellow NJPP board members. Would the board members stand up if you're in the room? Julia, that includes you. Stand up. Thank you. Why are we here today? We are here to discuss justice and how it should not be the privilege of the few, but the right of the many. From tax justice to economic justice to health justice and beyond. We will spend the day exploring ways to advance racial,
trying to figure where I change it.
social justice for
Settings.
every resident.
Stream.
A New Jersey that leaves no one behind.
How do I change it? Learn more. Oh, come on, just.
Okay.
Is
there a camera input?
I don't know. It should be a matter of settings, I would think. Just tell it what I want it to be.
Has been nothing short of exceptional.
Let's go to this one. This one is still.
We extend our deepest
Why is it
thanks
reverse?
to the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation for their support of this event.
Let me look
We are
at
also deeply grateful to all of the sponsors who helped make today's conference possible. In particular, I would like to thank the Communications Workers of America, the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation, the Fund for New Jersey.
Is there a system setting for the camera? I mean, and that's where you
Firefighting Power, and the Clara Dowdell Group. Thank you for your support for this event and for your support for NJPP.
I don't know.
Now, it is with great pleasure that I introduce NJPP's new president,
it is going.
Nicole Rodriguez. She is an experienced public policy leader who advocates for
Camera
equitable
controls.
solutions that center communities' needs
Can't do
with
it.
racial, social, and economic.
X out of that, you might
Before,
get.
Nicole
it says you can only do it before going live.
the value
Great.
that have
Yeah, she's not the live. She's not the keynote. So you want to
Right.
fill the.
by
I'm
God's
going to go
word.
back to dashboard.
No other person matches her knowledge, commitment,
I don't
and
know, even if I
dedication
go to
to
the
the work in the
settings.
does. I now turn it over to Nicole.
Oh, you know what? Let me turn this off. I was trying to get the exposure compensation.
Good morning. It's cold today. Hopefully, you won't get too warm, but. Thank you so much, Marcia.
And thank you so much to our sponsors for making today possible, and thank you to all our supporters. And thank you for just joining us today. I know it's a Friday, it's a long day, and we appreciate you guys coming here and supporting the work that we're going to be doing and continue to do together. So I'm Nicole Rodriguez. I am the president of New Jersey Policy Perspective. And if this is your first time with us, NJPP is a think and do team focused on state level policies that lift up economic, racial, and social justice through evidence-based research, strategic communication, and advocacy. A major underpinning of our work is justice. Justice should not be the privilege of the few, but the right of the many. From tax justice to environmental justice to health justice and beyond, we are here today to explore how to create a New Jersey that leaves no one behind, especially those who've been historically excluded. I knew early in my life what justice meant because I saw the voids that emerged without it. I am a first-generation Cuban American, daughter of immigrants, raised by a wonderful single mother. And despite her Herculean efforts, we struggled to afford the basics, like food and housing. My mom worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And those jobs, those low-paying jobs, took my mom away, forcing her to rely on family and friends to help raise me and my older siblings.
I haven't found anything yet that allows me to change it while it's.
Countless days and nights without my mom. Every morning, my mom would wake me up before sunrise and bring me to my grandmother's house. As I slept in her arms, she would tuck me into bed with my
So what
abuela.
happens if you click stream?
From there, my aunt would take the baton. She would come over to my grandmother's, wake me up,
And these are
make me
grayed out,
breakfast,
not
and take me to
accessible.
school.
You have to do it
She
before.
also picked me up from
So,
school and took me back to my
but
grandmother's
I
house.
chose.
And from there,
I
my
was trying
grandmother would
Check
bathe
it out on
me,
Wi-Fi.
make me
I don't
dinner,
know what the
and
Wi-Fi
tuck me into
password
her bed
is.
to sleep. And then late at night,
It's,
after a long
I
day,
forgot.
my mom would carry me back home. I don't remember those moments well, but I know they were precious to my mom. And she did this for years. And we were the lucky ones. We had a tight-knit family, and we had such a strong immigrant community that helped us along the way. But that does not remove the tremendous guilt and sadness that my mom carries and had carried from not seeing her kids grow up. She missed so many pivotal moments just to provide financially for us. She was so much that I would call my aunt Mama. Her heart was broken every single day. Justice would have enabled my mom to work a job that would have allowed her to afford the basics and spend time with her kids. Instead, like too many New Jersey parents, she struggled to pay the bills, worried about taking time off to take care of her sick kids, and sacrificed her love and joy for us. Justice would have been a peace of mind for families like mine, especially with my mom. And this is just my story, but in many ways, it's the story of New Jersey. Thousands of people right now in this state must live their lives in this extremely difficult circumstance. And this is why I'm here with you all today. We need justice, for working families, for working parents, just like my mom, who are paid too little to make ends meet, even after working 12-hour days. We need justice for kids who grow up without financial security to thrive at home and excel in school. We need justice for Black and brown and immigrant communities, and for every community pushed back and not prioritized in the policymaking process. Communities that for far too long have been denied or excluded from the resources they need to put food on the table, keep a roof over their heads, care for their kids, and save for their futures. We need justice for all. These problems were caused by public policy. But the good news is that public policy can solve these problems. And we know what we need. As we continue to recover from the pandemic and the recession, New Jersey is at a transitional moment, a moment of opportunity. We can, and we should, use this opportunity to make policy choices today that allow us to build a better future for all residents. To move forward, we must affirm our commitment to justice and prosperity for all. We must aggressively work to eliminate poverty. We must aggressively work to close the racial wealth gap. We must aggressively work to pursue restorative justice to build a stronger and fairer future for all. But policy choices that secure racial and economic justice won't come easily, nor will they be guaranteed. We will have to defend the gains we make over the years ahead, but justice is worth our effort, and progress requires it. One of my favorite quotes by Frederick Douglass said, "If there is no struggle, there's no progress. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will." Right now, nearly 4 in 10 of all households in New Jersey don't earn enough to cover basic expenses. This is according to United Way's latest ALICE report. 4 in 10. And more than half of Black households cannot afford the basics for survival. That's nearly twice the rate for white households in New Jersey. This is due to policy failures over decades that have been and continue to be riddled with systemic racism. Policy failures that have resulted in disproportionate rates of Black households facing financial insecurity. But when we struggle together, we can make change. The sort of change that reaches parents like my mom. Change that does right by children and families who've been left behind for far too long. And I know that making change is possible because we already have achieved so many major victories. Together, many of which people in this room have helped fought for, we increased the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We made sure all New Jersey residents can get a driver's license. We expanded health insurance coverage to all kids. We expanded our paid leave programs. We legalized marijuana and are beginning to repair the harms of the drug war. We expanded the social safety net and created new tax credits for working families. We passed the millionaire's tax, providing more revenue to the programs and services that help us all. Policy successes like these are what happen when we work together. And they're only made possible through our joint struggles and partnerships. But even with this progress, more work remains. And as I look around this room, I see many important partners from across the state and the country who are ready to continue this hard work. To kick us off, we've asked one of those partners to join us here on stage to share her vision of justice. Taifa Smith Butler is an important leader in and contribute to our struggle for racial and economic justice. She's the president of DEMOS and previously was the president and CEO of the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute, NJPP's sister organization in the State Priorities Partnership. She is a champion of policy solutions rooted in racial and economic justice and brings more than 20 years of experience in strategic communication, public policy research, and data analysis. Taifa is a first-generation college graduate with a master's in public management and policy with a concentration in economic development and financial management from the High School at Carnegie Mellon University. She was named one of Atlanta's 500 most powerful leaders in 2020 and 2021 by Atlanta Magazine. Taifa is with us today to describe the role of racial justice in effective state and local policy. Please join me in giving Taifa Smith Butler the warmest of welcomes.
Okay, so clearly I sat in the wrong chair. That was my dramatic entrance. Listen, before I get started, congratulations, John, Nicole, Gordon, who I didn't get to see last night, and Brandon, for your incredible, incredible leadership in the state of New Jersey, but also and I also have to say, I have seen Nicole. This leader that you have, if you all were here last night, you know, there's no mistaking the incredible work that John, Gordon, and Brandon have done. But to see Nicole follow 3 men as the first woman leader in this state, in this organization, congratulations. Women, Latinas, first generation, all the things you embody, and I hate to follow you this morning. You said some incredible things that I think give us all pause, because we all bring a different story to this work. We all bring a different lived experience to the work of economic justice. And to see Nicole as a policy fellow years and years and years ago take the stage, and now take this stage is just incredible to watch, and I am in your corner and support you always. That's my Captain America line. And it's funny because as I think about this work, I used to joke and say earlier in my career that, you know, I had always dreamed to be in film and on TV and sort of being an actress, and I said, you know, doing this work of public policy is just my side hustle until I get discovered, right? But lordy, working to save democracy is the drama of it, right? And so I got enough drama, and I see enough antagonists and protagonists in my life, but I am glad to be in this fight with you, and DEMOS is glad to be here representing not only the importance of working at the federal level to advance a multiracial, inclusive democracy, but also understanding that the battleground is in the states, and we've got to work together and collaborate. And so with that, I'm gonna go to these remarks. But if I go left, just understand, I'm gonna let the spirit move me to but what I want to talk about is this thing about the economy, right? A lot of us are thinking that the economy is something, some great proclamation hurled down from the heavens, massive and unaccountable, controlled by political and corporate forces so remote that they are out of our reach, much like Thanos in the Infinity Gauntlet, right? Inevitable. But we in this room know that the economy is not Thanos nor any intergalactic mystical force. It is a clear and eloquent expression of the values of racial capitalism, and it runs in public policies created by the very people who benefit the most. And no, the economy is not merely something that happens to us. In a sense, it is us. It is our economy. And the economy is not this inevitable force. We shape it and experience it every single day. And in these choices that we make that Nicole referenced, they are stark, and we are facing them in such an unjust way. And we have the opportunity today to seize something different. And one thing that you can say about the American economy is it is productive. It produces abundance. According to many measures, the United States is the wealthiest nation in the world. And yet, we lack the mechanisms to ensure that plenty is shared. Year after year, our economy and laws work to extract wealth from the majority of us and concentrate that wealth in the hands of a tiny but mighty minority. Our country has more billionaires than any other nation in the world except for China. Which brings me to perhaps the second most striking characteristic of our economy is that it creates winners and losers based on human hierarchies defined by race and class, gender, disability status, and geography. For example, Wednesday was Black Women's Equal Pay Day, the day when the pay received by the average Black woman in the workforce finally catches up to the pay of the average white man that he received in the previous year. Wednesday. Yes, it took 9 additional months in 2022 just to reach parity with the pay of our white male counterparts in 2021. But what's worse still is that this year it took 6 weeks, even longer. Last year I was on the microphone talking in August about Black Women's Equal Pay Day. Now we're in September. Things are worsening. And for Native women, they won't see their Equal Pay Day this year until the end of November. And Latino women who make 49 cents on the dollar won't see it until December. This disparity in wealth multiplies across generations, and this disparity echoes the injustice, the inequity, and the unfairness in our economy, and that's why today we're talking about justice. Equity has never been a value embraced by our democracy or even expressed in our economy. Instead, we value the colonizer, the landowner, or the land thief. We value the slave owner, the white-skinned, the able-bodied, the wealthy, the capitalist, the homeowner, the employer, the corporate lobbyist, the campaign donor. And we undervalue indigenous people, immigrants, people with melanated skin, people with disabilities, women, jobs held by people with melanated skin, people who work in agriculture, domestic workers, caregivers, people who earn or do labor inside the home, unpaid labor inside the home, or people who earn or work outside of the wage earning economy. We undervalue people with no wealth, low wealth, people who maybe even own more than they own. The value construct in our economy is echoed precisely in our democracy. Economic power and
wage earning
power are
economy.
inextricably linked.
We
And the
undervalue
ability to
people
put
with
money
no
in people's
wealth, no
pockets cannot be unraveled by the ability to shape the conditions of where we live and where we work and where that money ultimately goes. Our economy and our democracy are one. And so here's the thing. Unless and until we change the value construct in our economy, we will continue to perpetuate oppression and exploitation of those who have been most marginalized and who have been historically excluded in our economy. And so we must, in order to have the justice that we want and that we need, we have to shift power. And at Demos, we keep our fingers on the pulse of the movement. And I can tell you, every single day, I see not only in the state of Georgia, where I've done work for 23 years, but now in this role at Demos, our movement partners tell us in order to build this multiracial, inclusive democracy that we're talking about, there has to be a power shift. We must democratize who has the power to make decisions about this economy, about this democracy, and how we allocate resources to those most in need. And so from a point of democracy or our democratic standpoint, it's crucial that we expand access to the ballot. We understand that those opportunities for people of color to run for office and win, that begins to get us to shifting power. But it's also an economic imperative. We want to see Black and brown people, low-income people, working-class people have the power to influence these economic forces that affect their lives every day, to contest public control over public goods, to engage with mega corporations that come into their communities and try to turn them into profit centers, to co-govern so that the people can sit at the decision-making table and build durable power that persists outside of election cycles. We want to see this 365, 24/7, not just in an election season when we're looking for voices and votes. Our history of underinvesting in communities of color is not our destiny. It is not inevitable. We can and we must see power held in the hands of a multiracial, multi-ethnic majority of Americans. This is not only possible, but critical for our country's long-term vitality, particularly when we just see 20 years out into the future that the United States will become a nation whose population is a majority people of color. And if we don't find a way to shift power before that happens, we run the risk of entrenching white minority rule. We risk creating additional barriers to democratic participation for these communities, even as they gain a demographic majority. And I know you've seen the reports. We've talked about demography does not equal destiny. This is serious. If we don't have a fundamental change in our systems, we will just perpetuate this inequity. And so we must address these structural issues with structural solutions head on at all levels of government and policy. It's encouraging to see the Biden administration working to advance some of these solutions. We can appreciate the administration's efforts while still acknowledging that these federal policy advances come as a result of tireless organizing and advocacy in Black and brown communities by our labor partners. They have been honestly. And the latest example of this is the Inflation Reduction Act. This legislation contains provisions that organizers and advocates have fought long for, including investments in renewable energy and climate investments aimed at frontline, meaning poor and colored communities. It begins to address tax loopholes, and we know about the tax loopholes that corporations have exploited for years to avoid paying their fair share. And it gives Medicare the power to negotiate prices. All of these are a cause for celebration. Yet, the Inflation Reduction Act also creates winners and losers. How could it not? It was achieved through the same tired process. A few powerful men negotiating a deal that sacrifices the needs of some people for the benefit of others. That the people whose needs are easily traded away tend to be the people of color and women. Can be no surprise. It has been the same throughout our history. For instance, the groundbreaking New Deal policies that helped create the American middle class also established this pattern of providing public goods to some people while leaving many others behind. The National Labor Relations Act of 1935, our country's first national labor law, explicitly excluded the protection of employment sectors in which most Black people held jobs, agriculture, and domestic work. The Federal Housing Administration offered low-cost mortgages in segregated white neighborhoods, while at the same time redlining Black neighborhoods. Thanks to the grip of corporate money in our Congress, the Inflation Reduction Act similarly achieves some valuable goals, but clearly damages and undercuts some of the most important economic justice aspirations. The policy makes major concessions to fossil fuel industry that will almost certainly result in extraction projects that poison the air, water, and land in Black and brown and indigenous communities. It excludes widely popular and critically needed investments in our infrastructure, from child care to elder care, to the child tax credit and earned income tax credit, to affordable housing and healthcare. All of these provisions were in the larger, more equitable Build Back Better Act. The same forces that blocked Build Back Better and whittled it down to the Inflation Reduction Act have hollowed out our democracy to the point where it is more threatened and more fragile than ever in my lifetime. You can imagine it from any perspective, how politicians get elected, how policies get adopted, how programs get implemented, and you will also find where political power ends and economic power begins. They are inextricable. And we have an opportunity now to ensure that this power moves out of the hands of corporate boardrooms and out of the hands of authoritarian politicians and into the demos, the people, the workers, Black and brown communities, where it belongs. Demos and others have rightfully called this balance or this shift in power economic democracy. To achieve economic democracy, we must do three things. We must break up and regulate corporate power, like Amazon and Google and Meta. We must ensure essential childcare and internet access are recognized as public goods and equitably administered. And we demand co-governance that provides an equal voice for the public in making decisions about the economy. Today, economic and political power in this country is hoarded by a small group of oligarchs. And I can tell you, Nicole, John, when I got to Demos, having a lens at the state level, you get sort of, myopic vision, right? You just think about what's in front of you in terms of state policy and the state legislature. But when you start thinking about these bigger issues of systems and who's controlling, and I started hearing and talking with national leaders about fascism and authoritarianism and oligarchs, and I'm like, oh, MG, here's the drama, right? But understanding for real, that there are powers at play with the wealthy, almost exclusively these oligarchs are white men, corporate executives. And this again is not a new phenomenon, but it's a lopsided distribution of wealth and power that has really, like I said, been very dramatic. The top 1% have more wealth than the entire middle class. And during the pandemic, billionaires have seen their wealth increase by 58%, while the rest of us have suffered, particularly communities like that. So these corporate oligarchs are fueling much of the inequity and inequality that we see today, and profiting. So, and I know this sounds really bleak, and I feel like I'm being a bearer of bad news, but I want you to understand what we're doing with the fight. And so let's take Amazon working. I'm sorry, Prime Minister. I'm one step. But Amazon's profits in 2022 increased almost $6 billion above their 2019 profits. And almost none of it went to their workers. Amazon workers did get a pandemic hazard pay, an average increase of about 99 cents per hour in 2020. Jeff Bezos, meanwhile, gained an average of $11.5 million an hour. Still, Amazon aggressively fights its workers' efforts to organize and shift this grossly imbalanced power. So the billionaire class is using every lever at their disposal to maintain the status quo. We're here today fighting for justice. And they continue to funnel their wealth and their decision-making power to themselves. And one of the biggest levers is our political system. The oligarchs aiding in pandemic profits are some of the same people who financed lobbying campaigns that derailed Build Back Better and blocked other widely popular policies such as the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. The same people who fuel voter suppression laws in states across the country, 34 such laws in 18 states in 2021 alone. It made it impossible to raise the federal minimum wage above the shameful level of $7.25 an hour, where it's hovered for 13 years. Who fund the politicians and the media outlets that spread the big lie and undermine faith in the function and the very notion of our democracy. But remember, our economy and our democracy are one. The corporations that fuel inequity and the politicians that intentionally suppress democratic rights and participation are part of the same continuum, the snake eating its own tail. Are authoritarian politicians setting favorable conditions for the wealthy in exchange for well-funded campaigns to amass political power for themselves? Perhaps. And are oligarchs putting unprincipled politicians in power to protect corporate interests? Yes. It's a symbiotic bromance. Wealthy oligarchs seeks authoritarian politicians for walking on the beach and undermining democracy together. Our electoral process is swamped by big money from the billionaire club and their corporations. And of course, in a country as ours, such drastic racial wealth disparities and the donor class that controls, let me do that again. Of course, in a country with such drastic racial wealth disparities, the donor class that controls who runs for office and who wins elections is almost entirely white. Candidates of color are far less likely than white candidates to have wealthy networks to tap into for campaign donations. We can see results in our elected bodies, which rarely reflect the racial, ethnic, cultural class makeup of the constituents that they are supposed to represent. These unreflective legislatures consistently adopt policies that reinforce economic and political marginalization rather than combating it as a responsive government should. But communities are organizing to make their cities, counties, and states, and they're fighting back against this big money barrier by establishing public funding programs and small donation matching programs for candidates and campaigns. This brings running for office within reach of your candidates, or candidates who don't have personal wealth, like I mentioned, or rich friends, and it enables candidates to spend more time talking to the people as opposed to fundraising. Demos' research has found that public funding programs for campaigns result in more diverse donors and increased number of donors overall, and a large number of women and people of color running for office. Perhaps most important, elected officials who are not beholden to money interest and funding of their campaigns can actually be accountable to the communities rather than their donors. That's one of the hallmarks of economic democracy. And you've seen the memes, democracy is not a spectator sport. Well, economic democracy is a practice, a collection of affirmative decisions over our lives and our livelihoods that we, the people, have the right and the strength to make and support and protect. And I love this quote that Dr. Ibram Kendi has said. He's the author of How to Be an Anti-Racist. He implores us that there is no sideline to the struggle of democracy. And for many people who are not daily engaged in, the the civic engagement work or the work of economic justice, we have to find a place. There is no sideline to the struggle. The fight is real, no doubt. And I understand, having done work in Georgia, that the battleground is the states, is in the states. And in this 20-some-odd year career of doing state level policy work, I understand and appreciate what it takes to do the work, what it takes to have done the work at NJPP over the last 25 years. The wins that you've made on the $15 minimum wage, something that many states still struggle to achieve. Your demand that the state stop making budget deals behind closed doors and for this open, equitable allocation of the American Rescue Plan funding is exactly the kind of co-governance that we must practice. And I think DEMOS and NJPP bring a very similar economic lens and perspective to our work. We both advance strategies to build power for workers in Black and brown communities and others who are marginalized. And I know that after the horror of learning that 3 Amazon workers died on the job in New Jersey, you all and your allies successfully fought to block the deal and build that deal to build an Amazon hub at the New York airport. It's that kind of activism that can stop unchecked corporate power in this place. And we recently released a case study that challenged that corporate power. And I understand so much, especially with the work of this multiracial coalition in Virginia called the For Us, Not Amazon, which organized against Amazon incursion in the region. These advocates fought and galvanized, much like you in New Jersey, with workplace deaths in Amazon. And they were concerned about the displacement and the gentrification that would take place in Arlington. The coalition.
Check my battery. Sorry.
The coalition's original goal was to stop Amazon from building equity to. This is COVID, y'all. I had COVID about 4 weeks ago. And it's still lingering. This pandemic, y'all, is still out there. Y'all be careful. We have to cut these remarks short. And I might be running. So I'll give you a tissue too, please. This is that drama, y'all, that we talk about. I was afraid of this. But thank you for your patience. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. You said we're family, thank you. It just makes me think about, this, residual of COVID. I'm still able to work. Thank you for the support. But we lost a lot of people. It makes me think about all these systems that silently impact our lives. And my ability to get double vaxxed and double boosted, have COVID, and recover quickly, but still have, the residual. But there are people who are struggling more than a cough. Fine. And we've got corporations playing games with power. And it's having real life consequences. And so, while I appreciate our healthcare industry and our workers and our systems, we've got to do better. And so I know I sound like I'm beating up on corporations today, but when you think about some of these public policies that can really make a difference for the health and the well-being of the needs of the people, and particularly those that have been most harmed by this exclusive economy and democracy. I don't know about y'all, but it makes me mad. It gives me pause, it makes me want to show up and fight in ways that I never thought I could, right? I'm also a first gen. Grew up having to get cheese from the government. To seek support when our family needed it most. Dad worked 3 jobs. And so it's real for me. It's not play. And when I think about our children and this 20-year arc, right, that we talk about, this country will be a majority people of color. And it's no panacea, people of color are not a monolith. We know that we all have different lived experiences, different identities, different everything. But what are the ways in which that we can work together to have that shared vision of justice, of equity, of the mere ability for us to have the agency to say, I want to be able to have my schedule ahead of time. I want to be able to take the day off when my child is sick. I want to be able to go to the doctor when I get sick. So we all talk about thriving and not surviving, and I hear that so much in communities today. And so as we think about these stories, and I was gonna go in depth in a story about what happened in Arlington. They were not able to stop Amazon from coming there because of, the the luxurious, lucrative tax subsidies. But I think this one point here I want to make is that, as these big corporations have outsized influence in our economy and in our democracy, case in point, Amazon. When they come into these communities and extract, and exploit. What Amazon did in Arlington was asking, or not, I would say, approaching this community and not investing as a corporation in the workforce or in that community, but asking that community to invest in them. And that's jacked up. And so while I was inspired by the multiracial coalition in Arlington and the activists for us on Amazon, and they weren't necessarily able to, again, stop the headquarters from coming in there, but they were able to stop Amazon from partnering with the local law enforcement agency to surveil their community. And they are still fighting for Amazon for affordable housing and investments in health and education and economic futures for the communities. And so, as I close, I'm excited because amid all of these challenges that we face and the powers that be, it's states like New Jersey that show us what's possible. I mean, again, it gives me hope that even in a context like Jersey, where some of us, I've done my policy work in Georgia, so our political context was a little different. And so we looked up here a little bit jealous that what you already done with a favorable and amenable administration, right, for many, many years. But we also know that we can't allow our progressive policymakers to be comfortable. There's much work to do. And I often think that the more comfortable folks are, the harder we have to fight. And I hear that from some of our state partners in states like New Mexico, where they say, hey, a progressive, trifecta is not a panacea, because people get comfortable. And I had some remarks in here that I would be remiss to not say. And that is to philanthropy. Philanthropy has a major role to play. Donors and funders are making vital investments in swing states or movement states, and these dollars are making a huge difference. But I also hear a lot of frustration coming from movement leaders on the ground who are saying, hey, every state in our country is facing battles. We need to work with philanthropic allies to find ways to fund not just the seemingly movable, winnable, states. But everyone is feeling like every state is under attack right now. And so I've been encouraged by this energy to create a 50-state plus DC Puerto Rico territory strategy. It has to be broad and it has to be inclusive. And we have to fund the field because that's where the battles are most fought and will be won. And I can also tell you how frustrated some of our state level movement leaders are with the federal apparatus. And I know we have to do both. Both are critical to lobby Congress and advocate for some of these federal policies that will help states do right, help funnel dollars into states to invest. But also, there's this recognition that if we cannot change things like the filibuster, right, that is blocking a whole host of opportunities in our democracy and in our economy, for example, the federal minimum wage, the filibuster is the thing that is in the way. Gun law reform, filibuster is in the way. So So what I would say to you today is let's continue to push on the things that we know we're closest to, and let's continue to work together to bring those voices and the brilliance of the people who are closest to the problem. And I have appreciated being a state leader and understanding that the role of a think tank and a do tank is that sometimes white supremacy culture may show up in these research organizations, right? We do the research, we are analysts, we see the policies, we know all the reports in the papers, and so oftentimes we show up with the solutions like we're the smartest people in the room. But what I found is that we have to engage the people who are living the experience, the systemic oppression, the systemic barriers. We have to engage them in the solutions. They know what the challenges are. They know how to solve them if you just listen. And so we have to be in a posture to listen to the field, to the folks on the ground, to the folks in community, and partner with them to advance those solutions. And I'm really encouraged by the do part of NJPP because you understand what it takes to be in community, to be in coalition with a host of organizations to really build the powerful group and voice that you need to advocate for the change you want here. And so as I talked a little bit today, I'm going to close with just my remarks about just how inspired I am by NJPP, how inspired I am by all the work that the state priority partnership groups are doing across the nation, and how I am inspired and encouraged by states like Georgia and New Mexico who are organizing voters amid the suppression. And I know we talk about we can't out-organize voter suppression, but they are making it a way to get it done because it is necessary. And this is where the continuous resources are necessary. And so I just want to encourage you, let's continue to keep equity as our guiding light. Let's invest fiercely, unapologetically, ferociously in the demos, in the people. And the way forward, again, is to amplify those solutions in partnership with folks in the field and to ensure that, again, to have the economic justice that we want and that we need, to help build this inclusive, multiracial democracy and economy, we know that we have to keep justice, keep the people by our side, in front of us, behind us. And I would love to use this quote by James Baldwin that says, we must do what we can do and fortify and save each other. So let's do that. Let's fortify each other, save each other, and while we're at it, let's save our democracy and economy. And when I was thinking about this sort of analogy of the Thanos and the Marvel and the superhero and this drama that we talk about, I was going to end this speech by saying, like, in my Captain America voice, Avengers Assemble. But I got hyped up last night by Haiti Rosenstein, and so I'm going to say, Resistance Family Assemble. Our future is called. Let's go.
I've known Taifa almost 10 years now. And every time she opens her mouth, I'm inspired. So let's give Taifa another round of applause. I definitely learned so much from you over the years, and I know we all have learned so much in this very moment. You're one of the very few people that I know that really does practice and preach. And we need you. And Demos is so lucky to have you. So let's continue this conversation that Taifa has nicely teed us up for with our morning plenary, achieving a multiracial democracy. So I would love to introduce Amal Sigmund. Recognized civil rights leader who has dedicated his career to advancing racial justice, holding institutions accountable, and promoting and defending rights and liberties. As executive director of the ACLU of New Jersey, Amal leads a team of dedicated professionals who guides the organization's integrated advocacy work, utilizing litigation, policy, public education, and strategic communications to build a more equitable society. Before joining the ACLU NJ, Amal was a state policy advocate at the Innocence Project and the director of the Suffolk County chapter of the New York Civil Liberties Union. Please join me in thanking Amal for being with us today. Next, we have Kiki Jameson, PhD, who is the president of the Fund for New Jersey, a private foundation that supports nonprofit organizations and that advance progressive public policy in New Jersey, with specific emphasis on racial justice, economic justice, democracy, and power building. She also